We're living through an age of dietary fads like never before. But having tried the paleo diet and a high-protein gym regime, there's one very fashionable diet I've completely overlooked. Maybe it's the influence of the internet, environmental concerns, or worry about animal welfare. One thing is for sure, veganism is having its moment.
You know, my generation, we were reared with the meat protein was the centre of the meal, was the centre of the plate.
Even 10 years ago, if you decided to be a vegan or vegetarian, unless you had friends and family who were doing it, it was a pretty lonely path. Now, we're going to Instagram the avocado toast.
What is a vegan?
Vegan?
Yeah.
But I suppose a vegan is somebody that doesn't eat meat, but they're also against dairy, cheese.
No animal products.
Completely animal friendly, do you know what I mean?
I don't want to eat animals that have been raised in, cruel conditions.
What do vegans eat?
Very little.
Vegetables and grains.
Tofu, that's it.
Yeah. Does any of it sound appealing to you?
It's horrible. Do you know what I mean? You want the real stuff, do you know what I mean?
I think you can cheat more when you're a vegetarian.
That's it.
Vegetarian's about cheating, vegan is about being
think you're
hardcore.
purist.
I'm tempted by the idea of becoming a vegetarian purist, so I'm going to go vegan for a month. Just before I go and get the advice of our dietitian, though, one last beef sandwich.
So, I suppose there is virtuous veganism and then there's not so virtuous veganism.
So it's the same with any diet. You need to manage it to try and get it looking a little bit more colourful.
Where can it and where does it most frequently go wrong?
First thing is it getting enough protein. The other thing that I see quite often is people not taking vitamin supplements to replace some of the nutrients that they need.
And you absolutely do need vitamin supplements?
Yeah, you do. It's very difficult to do the diet without the supplements. I mean, you can, but you have to take a lot of work and a lot of planning.
It would be very, very tempting to fill myself up on stodgy carbs, wouldn't it? Because it's so easy. But clearly, this is the plate that I need to be moving in the
And I mean,
direction
that
of.
looks so much more attractive as well. But I mean, sometimes these people just rely on things like pasta and bread and, you know, they're not replacing the protein and they're not getting all the colour from fruits and vegetables.
Things like tofu and soy, are they good meat alternatives for protein replacement?
Really good. And I see the other thing is they're not overly high in fibre. So, you know, because you're going to get so much fibre naturally in the diet. And tofu is great, so it's a calcium too.
Why are these here? Are they on the list or off the list?
It's up to you. But in terms of these foods, this is just to be really careful with the food labelling. You think a peanut's going to be fine, but there's actually milk in those that's used in the coating, so they're not vegan. And then these, ironically, are barbecue Texas crisps, and they are vegan.
Really?
Yeah, so you need to look at the food label to ensure that. The thing is, if you're going to embark on this diet, where the health benefits come from is all the beans and pulses and fruits and vegetables that you're having in the diet.
So this is not just about running away from meat and from animal produce, but about running towards something else.
Yeah, I mean, you're taking one food group out, but you need to embrace plant foods.
Avian's told me to take a vitamin supplement. I've decided it's going to be much more interesting, though, to not take one and see what happens to my body, because most people starting on a vegan diet don't take one, and there's lots of vegan websites saying it's not necessary.
Oh, I certainly do remember the beginning of the vegetarian craze and the beginning of the health food shops, actually. I remember I used to buy in a health food shop and they were always so cranky behind the counter. I always thought they needed a good steak. That was very irreverent of me.
Most of the mainstream supermarkets now have a large vegan line. Those foods are pretty high in salt. Some of them have a lot of added sugar as well. You can be a vegan and eat potato crisps and pints of Guinness. You know, you can have a really unhealthy vegan diet. It doesn't necessarily mean that you are being very healthy.
Attractive though a diet of crisps and Guinness sounds, I realise quickly that I'm going to have to shop very differently.
Orla, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Lovely to meet you. Now, you're going to take me by the hand and tell me what and what not to do. How many of your new converts to veganism come straight in and make for the treats?
Well, definitely a good few, but you'd be surprised. I think what most people know to do now is to get their fruits and veg first, and then when they're kind of hemming and hawing, and they know they're going to want something at the end of the night. They'll pick up one or two of the treats.
There were a lot of surprising things here. Like, I mean, cola bottle.
They taste even better than normal jellies. You know, they have a really nice bite to them. They don't kind of get stuck in your teeth. They're really, really good. I love them.
Tell me, why are people, to your mind, turning to it? Is it for health? Is it for environmental reasons? Or is it because of their animal welfare concerns?
Personally, I think it's a mix of everything. Health is always going to be a very, very big one because people care about themselves a lot and they want their health to be big. If they hear that veganism is going to help their health, they're going to go for it. If you've never tried any nutritional yeast, this is probably the best thing you can get.
Nutritional yeast?
Nutritional yeast. So it's got this nutty, cheesy flavour to it, but it's basically known as vegan crack. That's how good it is. I'd be nowhere without this. This goes on everything. It tastes like cheese. It's so good. It's so tasty. But the vitamin profile is crazy. You know, it has vitamin B6, biotin, iron, loads of folic acid. Honestly, I nearly have to rein in how much I take of this because I love it so much. But it's such a sought-after product.
Are you vegan yourself?
So I feel like if I called myself vegan, a lot of vegans would get mad. But I see myself as a vegan.
But you're not
But
doctrinaire.
I'm not 100% vegan. No, I'm not.
Are you flexitarian?
I'm flexitarian, but praying that one day when this becomes big enough, that it's either we're all gonna have organic and every chicken and every cow is gonna see the light of day, or we're just gonna be smart about it and go vegan and care about the environment and our bodies.
Cashew nuts, lovely. Cashew nut butter, not so lovely. Almond milk. There's 7 times less protein in that than there is in cow's milk, so I've had to reorganise the entire kitchen now. Chia seeds, linseed, mystery protein powders, and enough nuts to sink a gunship in order to get in all of that lost protein. And the yeast flakes, I know it's supposed to be vegan crack, but I'm not having a whole lot of crack with it, to be honest. Even though vegetables are always nutritious, making them an appetizing centerpiece of dinner is a challenge.
Chefs especially will talk about how they hate vegans, you know, because how dare somebody come into their restaurant and ask them to give up the things that make food delicious.
On Monday night, you'd have boiled potatoes, and on Tuesday night, you'd have boiled carrots, and on Wednesday night, you'd have boiled cabbage. We've got to get over the Irish idea that what you do with vegetables is boil them.
One notable sign of the popularity of veganism is a new weekly walking tour of Dublin establishments serving vegan fare. Needing to feel the love for veggie dishes, myself and 2 Omnivore volunteers tag along.
Hi everybody, thank you so much for coming.
Hi, my name is Philip. I'm vegan for 9 days. Approaching this from an ethical point of view, are you trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist in this country?
I think people don't understand that when you talk about chickens and eggs, that there are specially bred chickens for the egg industry and there's specially bred chickens for the meat industry.
Yeah.
That the actual male chicks that are born
In the egg industry.
within minutes of being born, they're grinded up
Alive.
and killed, grinded up alive and killed. And this is in every country. Why would you want to take a life when you actually have no need to take that life?
Because it tastes damn good.
Everybody here will agree. Everybody here, nobody here is going to contradict you. We didn't stop eating because it didn't taste good.
Yeah.
We stopped eating because we realized we don't need it to survive and we're killing others.
By the time we get to Bow Lane for vegan booze, the opinions are starting to fly.
If you had an infestation of mice in your kitchen, what would you do?
We would not kill the mice. We would find a humane way to capture the mice and set them free.
You would move the mice into my house to solve your problem, okay?
No, you're not.
Because knowing, in the knowledge that I would kill them.
But people who eat meat pay somebody else to kill an animal for their taste pleasures every single day.
You know, at the beginning of time, we were eating meat, and it's what we're biologically, I guess, set up to do.
Well, that's
we can digest.
Let's not forget that the World Health Organization has come out recently and said that
Processed meat is carcinogenic.
Well, now, hang on a second. Increases your risk of exposure isn't automatically carcinogenic. There's way too much conversation going on here to be sustained, frankly, on that.
Next to McGuinness's of Camden Street. It's your typical Dublin chipper with a twist.
Have all sorts of options that you would get typically in a traditional Irish chipper. Battered sausage, which is fooled even the most ravenous meat eater.
How is it?
If you poured out of the pub at 2 o'clock in the morning, there's no way you would tell that from the real thing, would you?
Last stop of the night is with the intriguingly titled Sova Vegan Butcher, who serves scallops, black pudding and gourmet burgers.
That's the thing I've been missing as a vegan, is a meaty texture. The black pudding, that tastes better than an awful lot of actual black puddings on supermarket shelves.
So at the end of our vegan binge, what's the verdict from the Omnivores?
Did you wobble or waver at any point, or are you still a convinced carnivore?
I don't think I have wobbled. Being around vegans makes me feel bad. But I can go home and I will have a steak. I just enjoy my lifestyle at the moment, and I think it's really, really restrictive.
So is it the way of the future? Because they're all absolutely convinced that it is.
It kind of smacks of Western indulgence in some ways to me. It's like we have so much choice.
Really?
It's definitely a fashion that's on the rise. Whether it will fall again remains to be seen.
You're a tough audience, you pair.
2 weeks in and I have not had a single meat craving until now. I just made the kids sausages for their tea and I've had to leave the room and come and sit somewhere else, because if I was to go back in there right now, I think I'd probably actually fight them for a bit of sausage. Having tasted some top-notch vegan dishes earlier, the challenge remains. How do you cook them? Hilary has a few tips.
Right from day one, I'm afraid, none of these things were going to be acceptable to my palate.
No, I'd be the same there now. Really, you don't want to be replacing your meat with meat substitutes.
Do you know what? Even though we're talking about meat replacement and dairy replacement, they're very similar.
They're made up of very similar ingredients when you actually break it down. In the two of them is your soy protein, and then you'd also have some kind of a gum. So in this case, it's a xanthan gum, and then some kind of a fat. So in this case, we've got coconut oil, and then you'd have your flavoring. So maybe for your cheese, you'd have artificial parmesan, or for your meat replacement, then you'd have your meaty flavor.
So I would like, please, a plant-based, non-mock meat alternative.
So here I have for you some jackfruit, which has a very similar texture to the likes of your pulled pork or something like that.
Very sweet.
It is quite sweet. It's kind of almost pineapple-y maybe in texture. And we're going to make an Asian flavoured bao with this one.
What is a bao?
Bao is basically just a steamed rice bun.
To the jackfruit, Hilary adds soy sauce, rice wine vinegar, 5-spice, chili flakes and hoisin sauce.
And then I'm going to grate in some ginger and some garlic.
That looks nice. Greedy. Veganism has not been fun up until now. Oh, wow.
You like it?
I just gotta have more straight away. Really nice.
Coming up, facing some carnivore realities, and Aveen gives me the lowdown on what's happened to my body during a month of vegan eating.
I actually felt like I was doing my health serious damage.
The deliciously creamy taste of Dairy Gold spreads straight from the fridge, which gives you an extra minute for the things that matter to you. Like giving that minute to someone who needs it. Make a minute for the good stuff with Dairy Gold.
Jump back. Turkey for robbers at my door. Jump back, baby, jump back. I got that thing, let me in. Jump back, baby, jump back. Oh, jump back, baby, jump back. Oh, jump back, baby, jump back. Oh, jump, jump. Well, I went back home to get some sleep. Jump back, baby, jump back.
Moments are made with Cadbury Dairy Milk Fingers. And now try crunchy cookies with a soft melting centre. New Cadbury Crunchy Melts.
What distinguishes veganism from most other merely plant-based diets is its concern for animal welfare, something which is extending beyond the vegan community now. And while beef isn't intensively reared in this country, two other very popular meats, chicken and pork, mostly are.
You know, the more you write about food, the more you look at food, the more you find out about how meat is being produced, the less I want to eat factory-farmed meat.
I need guarantees about where my meats and proteins come from.
I'm not prepared to eat meat that has suffered for my dinner, actually, and I feel very strongly about that.
The danger is that it's become industrialised, and that's the challenge.
The core vegan message is that meat is murder, and at the Vegan Information Project's weekly Temple Bar stall, virtual reality goggles are used to give an immersive view of factory farming in the UK and Europe.
It's a short film, and you're in the position of a pig who is in a crate, and then there's a slaughter scene towards the end.
Okay. I'm in a very narrow pen looking at things from the sow's point of view. To either side of me, I can see rows and rows of sows either way. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. The conditions are pretty cramped.
Your next and final stop is the slaughterhouse.
I'd say it's a very, very effective technique for making you think. Typically, what reaction do most people have when they see that?
Usually they're fairly shocked because, you know, it's a kind of scene that they've never really seen before. But when they see it in such a visceral way, in the sense that they can actually be there and they can look around, they can see the ceiling and that, and it gives them that real feeling of being there.
And for you, what is wrong about slaughtering an animal?
Well, for me, it'll be a rights violation. What do we have the right to do? Do we have the right to control someone else's life from conception right through to slaughter? And the case for animal rights says that we don't.
Okay, I suppose my issue with that is that it's social philosophy. That's not the best way of determining how to eat.
I mean, first of all, veganism is a philosophy, not a diet. It's much wider than that. It talks about food security, talks about rights. You know, it's a much broader thing. I mean, everybody in the world could be fed if the world was vegan.
And has it made you think twice about eating meat?
In theory, it would actually, yeah. It's very strong seeing how it's done there.
It's a lot of difference when you do it with like virtual reality. Disgusting, like.
Having become vegan, how many people are falling away from it because it was a faddish kind of thing, and how many are sticking with it as a lifelong choice?
It tends to be the case that it doesn't really matter why people go vegan initially, but if they don't engage with the ethics fairly soon, then they might get a bit wobbly on it.
But were we meant to eat meat?
People in this country have eaten meat for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. I feel it's part of our psyche.
We have the rain, we have the grass, we have the beef, we have the lamb.
Our ancestors were dairying and were making cheese and were farming for milk 5,500 years ago.
Going back earlier than 5,000 years, though, some would suggest that without claws or pronounced canine teeth, humans were designed to be plant eaters, not omnivores. To find out if this is true, I went to meet archaeologist Dr. Bill Schindler and his graduate students deep in the Wicklow woods.
Has Homo sapiens, like mankind, always been a meat eater?
Homo sapiens, sure. The earliest evidence of our ancestors eating meat is almost 3.5 million years old.
Wow. Okay, so we have always been at this.
Yeah, always, as long as we've been on this planet.
At first, we humans were just scavengers, but then we discovered tools.
And that's game-changing, completely. And when that happens, and that happens around 2 million years ago, we see the biggest transformation in our bodies at that time. Our brains grow exponentially, and just as importantly, our body size grows, and females become about the same size as males.
So what were the first tools then beyond fingers and teeth that we used?
Okay, so the very first tool first appears around 3.5 million years ago. And it's a very basic technology where you take 2 rocks, and I'm gonna use this to strike off a flake. And look at that edge. That edge is, careful, that edge is razor sharp. And in certain rocks, like obsidian, it's 300 times sharper than a scalpel.
My God. You know what? It's so sharp, you could shave with that.
You could also do a pretty good job of gutting a duck with it.
Oh my God, look, it totally works. I'm right the way through. That's a bit of a revelation. And there we are. I can't believe how easy that is, Bill.
Now, this is the kind of food that we're after. This is the most nutrient-dense part of this animal, this liver.
There.
Right, so there's the heart. With the muscle, it's much easier for our bodies to digest it if it's processed in some way, sliced, ground, chopped, or even cooked.
The last unanswered question that remains for me, though, about veganism is it right to kill these animals just because we can, when we can get protein from so many other places?
So is there something wrong with taking the life of an animal and eating half of that animal, the part that's the flesh, and the rest of it goes to waste? Certainly there's something wrong with that. And the fact that other people are doing it for us creates a whole host of other problems, like huge, concentrated animal feeding operations, and we've been insulated from that. And insulated, it's advertised, it's convenience, and you don't have to worry about this. But again, there's something special about being a part of the entire process.
In all of the previous times that I've guinea pig diets for this program, I've never felt like I was actually putting my health at risk. It's different. This time I can feel really significant changes going on in my body. I'm weak and I'm depressed. A mere shadow of the man I used to be 28 days earlier, I make my way back to dietitian Aveen for my post-diet checkup.
Why did I feel so fatigued, frankly, so weak? I had a loss of strength on this diet.
Did you take your supplements with it?
No, I didn't. What I did, though, was to follow a very orthodox vegan diet that I researched online that told me I was going to get all of these nutrients.
Fundamentally, there's certain nutrients, vitamin B12 or vitamin D, you're going to have to get them from a supplement basis.
So what did happen to me then?
The one thing that I really noticed was your calorie intake. You were having about 600 calories less a day. Now, the weight loss probably wasn't necessarily a bad thing. You needed to lose a little bit, but unfortunately, you did lose a lot of muscle.
How much?
You lost a good 2 kilos of muscle.
2 kilos? Are you surprised by that?
To put it in a different perspective, when we go into our 30s, we get a natural loss of lean muscle mass. And over that decade, if you're not exercising that much, you can expect to lose about 3% of your muscle mass. You lost that in 1 month.
Through diet in 1 month, I have done to myself what otherwise it would take 10 years of not being physically active to do.
And that was purely down to not enough protein, not enough calories. You also had a loss of bone mass.
Bone mass?
Yeah, about 2% of your bone mass.
Is that serious?
Well, we don't want you losing any bone mass. You want to maintain your bone mass.
Are you surprised by that?
So it's not given the way you approached the diet. For you, you didn't take your supplements, and probably you didn't fundamentally approach this and research this to get all these nutrients in. We saw that loss.
I can see where veganism makes sense. Environmentally, eating less meat, open and shut case. And the diet, if you do it properly, which isn't easy, needn't be the same as sitting on a couch for a decade. It's the ideology I don't buy. I just don't have a problem with looking after animals properly and then, when the time comes, killing and eating them. Even these guys who I love, if it came to it. It's just the kind of omnivore I am.
Next week, Philip will be off to find fish as he asks why we don't eat more of the ideal natural resource. And on Wednesday, we start a new series which will help all of us to become producers of our own produce. Grow, Cook, Eat starts on Wednesday at 7:30. Next tonight, Thursday's Main Evening News.